Hi everyone, it's Kendall here, and this week we have week 15 of our continuing Brackman mystery series. This week's block is super simple, so take some extra time to catch up on anything that you may be behind on, plan a future project, or tidy up your quilting space. I think we're all guilty of leaving that a little bit longer than we'd like on occasion. So without much further ado, let's spin that wheel. Brackman ID 1729 gives us the Blockhouse block, which was a Nancy Cabot design from 1936. We've covered a lot of Nancy Cabot's designs, and if you think this one looks familiar, that is because it is. We have made very similar ones to this, being block 1728 in week 4, or the continuation block 16, and 1730, which was week 8 of the current series, but block 20 of the continuing series. This one is exactly the same as those, it just has a solid center, and as such, we are not going to do this one. So let's spin that wheel again. Brackman ID 1618 gives us the Virginia Worm Fence, and this was a Clara Stone design. It appeared in a booklet called Practical Needlework Quilt Patterns, which was a C.W. Corkins & Co. publication in Boston, Massachusetts in 1906. This was one book in a series on needlework. Stone had contributed patterns to Hearth and Home in the past, and this booklet included many of the designs published in that magazine. So this one's a quite simple block this week, but let's go through how to do it. On the cutting sheet for today's block, you will notice that I have given you the individual sizes to cut all of the rectangles, and down underneath I tell you how you could do this with strip sets, which is the way I'm going to do it throughout this video. I've got my 2 half strips here, so half a width of fabric as if it's come from a fat quarter, but you will also need to cut an additional 1 of each in the print and the background, 2.5 and 4.5 inch rectangles, as we'll only get 8 from our strip sets. Now, when sewing your strip sets together, you are not water skiing behind the machine, so don't pull on it, don't stretch on it, just line it up as accurately as you can and let the feed dogs do the work pulling the fabric through the machine. If you leave your hands to the front of the fabric, you'll find that it won't go wavy or off on an angle, but if you have your fingers too close to that left hand side of your needle, you'll notice that the strip will want to move in a sideways fashion. So just slow and gentle, get your strips sewn together, and then we will press these all towards the darker of the 2 fabrics. Just a tip for when you are pressing these strip sets, and this is on any length with the fabric half strips, just put some heat in it first to set those stitches, and then finger press that in place, and you can maintain keeping it straight, and then press it with a final lot of heat on the iron. If you do actually drag your iron along and iron in place of pressing, you will notice that you will get a bow in the strip. So just put some heat in it, finger press it over to one side, and then lock it in place with a final pressing. With our 2 strip sets now made, they should equal roughly 4.5 inches in width, but do not be too disheartened if they don't. Just go ahead and trust the process. We're now going to nest that seam allowance along the middle, just so that we can cut both of these strip sets at the same time, but you could do each individually if you would like. We're going to use a reference line from our ruler and place that along our stitching line, and we're also going to make sure that the edge is on a straight line from the ruler too, running perpendicular to that stitching line. We're then going to cut these into 4.5 inch segments, and as I said, from these strip sets you will get 8 of those, so you will need one additional rectangle of print and background fabric that is 2.5 inches by 4.5, and you'll see me get that ready in a moment. We now have all of the units that we need to make up this block, so refer back to our cutting sheet, which is linked in the description box below and will be posted at the Facebook group Kendall's Quilting Corner once this video premieres for the first time. Follow along on that diagram to make sure that you have your color placements correct. It is quite easy to get this out of whack, and then this will go together as a simple 9 patch. We'll start by sewing all of our vertical seams and then our horizontal seams. To get nesting intersections, we will press in towards the center unit on the top and the bottom row and out towards the outside units on that center row. Once we've done our horizontal seams, we will just pick a direction and press, as we don't need to nest it or match up any of these seams with anything else. When getting ready to do our horizontal seams, this is a good time to refer back to that block diagram and make sure that you are sewing it together correctly so that you can avoid a date with Jack. So as I said at the beginning, this week's block is really quite simple, and for this final press after the horizontal seams, just pick a direction and go. So I thought to myself as well when I got to this point, what is it going to look like in the final quilt? So on point, here is what that looks like. You know, sometimes your brain just wonders the silliest things. If you are wanting to use AccuQuilt to make this one, you can, and we only need shape 8 from the 8-inch mix and match cube, and that will give you a 12.5-inch unfinished quilt block. As you will know, that I'm using the 6-inch mix and match cube, as that is what I have here, and I will get a 9-inch finished block. I'm just showing you there that when you run these through the machine, where that sticker is on the die board should be facing towards your tummy, And then when you place your fabric on the actual die board, you need to make sure that the lengthwise grain is running parallel to that front edge that you've put towards your tummy. What this does is reduces the likelihood of the fabric stretching when it goes through the rollers, as the crosswise grain can have a little bit of give in it. So just pay attention to how you're placing your fabric on the die board before running it through the machine, and you won't have any problems. We'll get all of these cut, and as I said, this just goes together exactly the same way as our first one, except we're not working with strip sets, we're working with individual pieces. And just like my larger version of this block, we're done. So if we put this block on repeat, it doesn't really make a very nice pattern, as you can see here. And I even tried rotating a few of the blocks around, and it really remained quite disjointed. So you could just add the sashing and cornerstones that I always talk about. However, if you look at this original block here, and we make 10 of those, say, and then we reverse the colors like this. So you would still make it exactly the same way, you just lay it out a little bit differently and the colors are in the different spots. You can actually achieve a quilt that looks like this. And I think that that would look great, as I always say, scrappy, or every row a different color. You just really need to keep your brain engaged on what you're doing, and you could create something amazing just by reversing the placement of your strip sets. So I promised at the beginning that this was a really simple block, and now that we're at the end of the video, you can see that I was right. I really like the idea of the last quilt that I showed you in mock-up of this block on repeat. You just need to remember to make 10 blocks as per the pattern and defer the 10 blocks with the placement of the colors reversed so that you get that desired chevron type effect on the final quilt. And I'd love to see if one of you could make that either super scrappy or, as I said, with each actual zigzaggy line a separate color. I don't have time to do it, so I'm asking one of you to do it for me. If you've liked what you've seen today, I'd love if you would like the video and share it with a friend that you think may be interested in what I'm doing here. Aside from that, all I can ask is that you subscribe to the channel and make sure you tickle that little bell icon to be notified of all my future releases, and you won't miss a thing. I do videos primarily on a Wednesday and a Saturday night, but throughout the year there is a smattering of stuff that will be released on a Tuesday, depending on what I'm doing at any given time. Alrighty, I will see you all again real soon. Bye for now.